I've been a musician, singer-songwriter, storyteller, and activist most of my life. Had some interesting gigs around the planet. Was in a movie once. I've collaborated with lots of fascinating characters, even a few asses. But the Cool Tunes crew has been about the most spectacular group of folks that I've never been in the same room with, yet have gotten to know and absolutely loved meeting virtually once a week over the last year. Thanks, y'all. It's sure been fun. Anyway, Fossil Fuel Undertakers is 1/6 of an EP called Songs for a Fossil Fuel Funeral. Take it away, guys. The fossil fuel undertakers are working every day, saving this old planet, gonna make the greedy pay. Those who made the money ought to clean up every well, and if you shirk your duty, you're going straight to you corporate polluters and frackers everywhere. You ain't gonna mess with us no more, we're cleaning up the air. The fossil fuel undertakers gonna bury you one day if you don't change your MO soon and get out of the way. The carbon days is done for, hear the ringing of the bell. And you may not like it, but it's time to plug that well. You corporate polluters and frackers everywhere, you ain't gonna mess with us no more, we're cleaning up the air. The pace of change is faster now, hold on to your hard hats. The old guard's moving out, we're dumping bureaucrats. Demand for oil's plunging, the world don't need your gas. So leave it in the ground, my friend, or shut up. Ask yourself the question, what else can you do? The carbon world is dying, fossil fuel days are through. All around the world now, folks are waking up, looking at this life as a half full cup. Things are getting greener, energy is cleaner. As the story's changing, so the chorus changes to solar panels and turbines everywhere. Folks are driving EVs and we're cleaning up the air. Yeah, we're all pitching in for good and cleaning up the air. Woo! Clean air.
I've spent my life working on this climate crisis, wrote the first book about what we then called the greenhouse effect back in the 1980s. And obviously that's a despairing business, and this is a despairing time in lots of ways. But about two and a half years ago, really began to notice, from especially watching elsewhere around the world, that the breakout was finally underway for renewable energy. That because it was now cheaper than coal and gas and oil, it was starting to be adopted at really remarkable volumes. First and foremost in China, which as of this spring is building the equivalent of a coal-fired power plant's worth of solar panels every 8 hours. But also in parts of this country. California now is producing most days more than 100% of the electricity that it uses from renewable energy, which means that at night the power that supplies its grid comes largely from batteries that spent the afternoon soaking up excess sunshine. And California is using 40% less natural gas this summer to produce electricity than they did 2 years ago. That says hopeful a statistic as I've seen in all my years of working on this.
California is like what, the fourth
largest economy in the world? Yeah, so it's not like an insignificant data point. It's not that we're going to do this. In fact, at the moment, the Trump administration is doing everything they can to slow it down. But for the first time, there is something we could do if we were really determined to slow down the rate at which the planet is warming. And that, to me, is an exhilarating new reality and gives me reason to continue to try and work as hard as I can. Among other things, it's why we're hard at work on Sunday for September to kind of bring this news as widely and broadly as we can.
Tell me a little bit more about Sunday.
September 21st, the autumnal equinox, will be a day of hundreds and hundreds of celebrations around the country. Many of them festive, e-bike parades, people opening their homes to their neighbors so they can see their heat pumps, solar-powered concerts. Some of them angry, people protesting new gas pipelines now that we clearly do not need any of this anymore. So it'll be a day to try and drive home the new reality that this is not alternative energy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we should stop thinking about it that way, though we have for 40 years. We now live on a planet where the cheapest way to make power is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. The obvious, straightforward, common sense way to power the future is with sun and wind and batteries. It's not the Whole Foods of energy anymore, nice but pricey. It's the Costco of energy, cheap, available in bulk, on the shelf right now.
It's extraordinary how our capitalist industries have managed to normalize all of these sorts of things that I was struck by your phrase, the constant incineration of assets, how fossil fuel companies manage to normalize that and make it seem like a perfectly rational thing to do. It's the equivalent of eating your seed corn.
That's right. I mean, it seems very normal to us because we've been doing it for a very long time. But if you think about it for a moment, the fossil fuel system on which we depend is a remarkably complicated and janky one. At this point, you have to be able to drill for oil miles beneath, say, the surface of the ocean, somehow get it pumped to a refinery where you go through a laborious process to separate it into various products, ship the gas off to a gas station. You have to fill it with your car whose engine has a couple of thousand moving parts because it has to control the combustion of that liquid fuel to drive you down the road, all the while wasting 70% of the energy as waste heat. Whereas, at my house, the solar panels on my roof are connected by a cord to the car in my garage, which has about 20 moving parts to move me away 3 to 4 times more efficiently in its use of energy than the internal combustion car it replaces.
If we grant for a moment that all of our energy, aside from nuclear, is one form or another of solar, and so coal is just really old solar.
Yep.
It seems to me there's a kind of inverse cost. The older the solar, either the harder it is or the more damaging it is to get it out and put it to use.
And the sun just bathes us in photons every day. And of course, the sun also, by differentially heating the earth, produces the wind that turns those majestic turbines. All the power we could ever want. The same local star that kindly provides us with light and warmth and photosynthesis is willing to give us all the power that we need. This is a great gift for everyone except the people who own coal mines, oil wells, gas fields. For them, it's an existential threat, which helps explain, I think, why they poured unprecedented amounts of money into the last electoral cycle and why they're now getting their reward in the form of the president banning solar and wind from federal lands and trying to shut down offshore wind turbines and give new tax breaks, yet more subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, and on and on and on. So it's a real fight. These guys have lots of money with which to game our political system, and I don't know how it will come out here. I'm confident that in the rest of the world, we're going to see this very rapid conversion to solar power. It's happening now in most places. It's possible that America just won't be able to do it, and that 10 years from now or 20 will exist as a kind of strange museum of antiquated technology that the rest of the world comes to marvel at how people used to do things. But if we do, we'll be a dramatically impoverished place.
I'm reminded, and when you were talking about the whole idea of dispersed grids, and you mentioned this in Pakistan. I lived in India for many years, and one of the things that I saw when I was first there in the 1980s was all of the landlines that were operating telephones, and it was an incredibly inefficient and extremely error-plagued system. And now everybody has cell phones, and they skipped over an entire phase of landlines.
I can remember being in India when you had to go to a room in town and schedule a call
Right.
a day in advance for the time that you were going to go and use the phone. And now they've leapfrogged all of that. And India may actually be the first really big country that manages to leapfrog much of the fossil fuel era. They're moving into their growth spurt at just the right moment when the price for sun and wind, of which they have an abundance, has come sharply down. India earlier this year announced that it had hit its 2030 targets for renewable installation 5 years early, and that fully half of their electric capacity now is renewable. So that's pretty remarkable.
That can't come soon enough for India, which has been choking on diesel exhaust and coal fumes for the longest time.
You said it.
Oh,
And
my God.
that's the other problem with combustion. It's not just that it destroys the climate, but we think about 9 million deaths a year, or one death in 5 comes from breathing the byproducts of fossil fuel combustion. If you've been to Delhi anytime recently, you'll have no problem believing this statistic. And so the prospect that we could also clean the air, and the prospect that we could lessen the power of those who currently derive their influence from their control of fossil fuels, the Vladimir Putins of the world, all these things are bonuses that come when we shift to an energy system that takes advantage of the fact that there is sun and wind everywhere on this beautiful earth.
I remember reading I think it was in Hugh Kenner's book on Bucky Fuller, where he introduced Fuller's concept of the energy slave as being the amount of work that a human being could accomplish in a day. And it made me think of a kind of moral equivalence between the misappropriation of fossil fuel energy and the misappropriation of human energy.
There's definitely a way in which this is a very liberating moment, if we choose to make it that way, and on many fronts. One of the ways I think it's liberating is that it reconnects us to the natural world around us. We depend, as you point out now, on kind of buried sunshine, but we have no real relationship to that. It's just a commodity that someone else has dug up on our behalf. But the idea that we might reconnect with the most charismatic object in our universe, albeit the one thing we can't look at directly, is very nice. And it's one of the reasons why, as we're going towards Sunday, we have such an emphasis on art and music, because, unlike, there really hasn't been a great deal of beautiful music made about coal and oil and gas over the years, but there's an awful lot of great songs about the sun.